The following session is a psychic reading conducted by Mrs. Irva Peterson with the sensitive Ross Peterson at Laughing Gull Point, Garden, Michigan. Please clear the mind and inform us when the mind is clear.
The mind is clear.
Dear Lord, please protect this entity from all negative influences, regardless of source, and give us the answers we seek of this inquiring mind through the manifestation of truth, intelligence, and love. Amen. Would you please allow your mind to go to whom, to where, to what, and to when it is directed? The questions we have all basically pertain to abortion and are designed to be available to the general public in aiding the greatest number of people toward the furthering of their soul development. Please adapt your answers to fulfillment of this objective and phrase your answers to the comprehension level of the layman rather than to only the specialist. Anti-abortion groups believe having an abortion is equivalent to murder of another person at any stage of that other person's life. Is this the sin they proclaim, or is it a preventative to birth similar and no less sinful than taking birth control pills or using a diaphragm?
This should be considered entirely as an individual and personal thing. There are circumstances existent where those who would consider the act of murder to be correct. However, these would be in the minority, so to speak. Again, the purpose for the commission of this act as of abortion is the first thing to be considered in whether the individual would be willing to accept it as sinful or not. Now, in most cases, the worst sin that can be committed would be that of the feelings of guilt that are held by the entity that would abort the fetus from that of the womb. Now, in most cases, these feelings of guilt, these excesses of emotion, are simply as the end result, so to speak, of what has been accepted as true by having a thought repeated verbally again and again and again and again. Now, we would condemn none, but in that of man's world, in many different avenues of expression or personal desires, there are those who would seek power. Now, in that of the days of old, and even now in evidence, there are those who maintain these seats of power as the supposed spokesmen of God, those who would be revered most high as pious men, religious leaders. For many, this is true, for they practice that of the spirit of law, rather than be concerned with that of the letter of the law. However, there were those who did seek to gather power, and in seeking to gather power, they needed peoples. Therefore, they did bring forth the edict that it was sinful to abort, it was sinful to prevent conception. Now, bringing forth these edicts upon that of a small portion of the world's population, when this was acted upon, naturally, population increased, but along certain guidelines. This was especially true of those that practice what is known as Catholicism, although there were others also. See, now when this has been accepted with belief that it is sinful to abort, that it is sin to prevent, when the entity does consummate these acts, it goes against that it has been programmed, so to speak, and feels guilty. Now, in that of the feeling of guilty, this is a great sin indeed. Now, if you would explore the purpose of the reason for the mother to wish to abort, simply utilize it in this fashion. If the mother would attempt to eliminate the fetus simply because she does not want to be bothered with the rearing of a child, then this would be the sin of indifference. And woe be to that one who is indifferent. However, if the mother should desire to abort the fetus because she feels that that of the forthcoming child would be subjected to pressures and deprivations, and that her love for the child would want her to eliminate the possibility of it being subjected to these, then that of total abortion certainly is no sin. In any aspect, you must understand that there is a life force in all things. But that you would find in the plants is no different than that you would find in any animal body. As far as the principle or activating force of life itself is concerned. Now you could take that of the wild sweet potato and find all of the hormones in it, and in greater abundance than you may find in that of a physical body. And yet does the plant reason or think? Nay. Does the plant have that of a soul? Nay, not as ye know it. But nonetheless, the activating force of life itself is the same for the plant as it is for the animal. The thing that is to be considered is the life taken after that of the soul has inhabited that of the fetus, the yet unborn child or newborn child. Now in this, there could be that of a sin. Ask thyself, if ye would raise a small garden, that of vegetables for thy sustenance, would it be a sin, a crime, to cut forth all the fruits of any of the plants before they have seeded? Would it be a sin to waste even one of these seeds? We think not. For God has given forth in abundances that have not yet even begun to be utilized by that of man. Yet all of these things are placed here for man to use, but only after the soul is in that of the physical form. Now, there is no more sin in eliminating that of the fetus from the womb by the mother than there would be in that of a tulip that chooses to refuse to open its petals for the emergence of sunlight so the pistil and the stamen may be one. However, purpose again is the key, and we have touched upon these aspects. In addition, it would be helpful for those who would wish to make this decision or choice for themselves that if the mother would choose to abort that of the child, it would be little more sinful than taking the life of a rabbit in order to prepare a dish of food. The exception to this would be if the soul had inhabited that of the developing child. Now this might take place as early as the 3rd month before deliverance, but this would be rare. For usually the soul enters that of the child shortly after the natural birthing process, usually within a day or so, but sometimes longer, and occasionally as many as a dozen souls would enter that of the newborn child to see if the vibrations are that is needed by the soul. Another way of saying, does the shoe fit? Or if it pinches slightly, the soul will leave it for yet another. Now the soul demonstrates no impatience, where impatience is of man and man alone. The worst that anyone could do is to eliminate the possibility or the opportunity of creating a vehicle for another soul to inhabit. The soul would not condemn, and these would speak of those of another dimension that are waiting for the re-entering in, so to speak. Again, purpose is the key. Then to be considered is the aspect of the emergence of the soul. But mostly, know that these beliefs are of a cultural nature. For ye can find many peoples of all races spread over the face of thy globe that do not believe in the concept of sin as far as abortion is concerned. This is a cultural sin and of man's doing, not of God's. See?
Would you please explain the distinction if abortion or the actual act of abortion is not considered a sin, yet conception is considered a gift of God?
Conception is a gift of God, but the gift can be just as meaningful for a cabbage as it can a human. A gift can be just as meaningful for a lettuce that would go to seed as it would for a female to bring forth triplets. Conception is a gift of God, for conception is the essence or the continuation of life itself. But this is within the providence of man. This is within that of choice. And this is as an individual thing, as of to purpose. This we have touched upon in that of considering why the abortion should be or not be. See?
The question has also been raised by others in regards to the feelings of abortion, and the question, what is life?
Life is spirit.
So actual life then is not considered until that soul has actually entered that fetus or physical form?
The rounding out of the full consummation of life as man knoweth is not fulfilled until the soul has entered that of the newborn child. See?
How can a woman who has had an abortion overcome her feelings of guilt?
The only thing that we could recommend is that we have lightly touched upon. Study other peoples on the face of the globe. Learn for ye all the different beliefs in regard to the use of the physical form. Then decide for thyself that is sinful. And ask thyself honestly, are all others who do not believe as I believe doomed for perdition? They will be consumed, and that of the fires of hell, for Hades will be thine? Nay. That is a portion of the record in this part of the world is the end result of that of cultural beliefs, not of God, but of man. See?
The Bible says, "Be ye fruitful and multiply." But with world conditions so unstable and seemingly degenerating morally, is it wise to adhere to this advice? Please also explain the quotation.
The misconception here is that they would assume that this means bring forth a child, and another child, and another child. And this is not that is given of all. When it is given that ye would be fruitful, this is fruitful unto thy Lord. It is simply passing that of the Word of God unto others and sharing. Has nothing to do with the deliverance of children. See?
What disruptions occur in the physical body of the woman who undergoes an abortion, and how can they be counteracted?
Well, the most severe disruptions are within that of the endocrine system and in the basic concept of the blood, you see. For as the mother would feed that of the fetus within that of the womb, the blood undergoes quite remarkable changes, so to speak, in order that this fetus can continue to grow and to be fed, you see. Now, when this is expelled prematurely, of course, it causes a temporary disruption within that of the physical form of the female. The least that could happen is the possibility of infection occurring within that of the reproductive organs, especially at the mouth of the cervical, in that of the act of abortion. But there are certain substances that could be taken that would help the body expedite the return to that is considered normal if there is no developing fetus, you see. Now, this could be found in certain hormone compounds. Now, there are wild yams that grow in the southern portion of Mexico. And while they are certainly not very tasteful and not too palatable, you could chew on a little one each and every day, for this contains certain amounts of progesterone that, if taken into the body orally and in the natural form by that of the female after the abortion has been completed, then you would find that the body would right itself easily. Now, in addition, there are certain exercises that can be done so that the womb returns to its normal size and continues to expel the matter that has been forcibly ejected from the womb. Simply lie upon the back and extend thy feet up to the heavens and rest the hands upon the hips. And let that of the body rest upon that of the back of the head, the neck, and the shoulders, and maintain this position 2 or 3 minutes. In addition, there are certain medicinal properties that have been developed by man that can be utilized with a simple injection, and if they are used in moderation, they are very helpful. That causes a contraction of that of the womb itself and would do so without pain. A modification of diet could be helpful here. After that, or even as much as 2 weeks before the abortion, there should be shellfish as a part of the daily diet. This will prepare the body for the ejection of the fetus and elicit the healing in a more expeditious fashion. See?
When abortion is consummated, if a soul has inhabited this fetus, what ramifications does it have upon that proposed incoming soul?
Without dwelling in a long, lengthy discourse, and it is always within the providence of man to exercise that of choice, it would take the most depraved of souls, of mothers, to consciously eliminate the fetus after the soul had entered. For you see, what happens is, as the soul enters that of the child, while it yet remains within that of the womb, it absorbs some of the consciousness, some of the pattern, some of the vibration of that of the mother. And these are in harmony, or else the soul could not emerge. There would be no entering in. And once this entering in would take place, then they are of a like mind. And while there is nothing that cannot be, it's almost a perfect example of an impossibility of occurring once the soul has entered. See?
What is the proper perspective one should have in regard to the physical body, pertaining in particular to the body being referred to as the temple?
The body is that of the temple. Ye have often heard in that of the good books of the temple, the church, the synagogue. But know ye that there is no edifice of stone, be it cathedral, church, or synagogue, that is the temple that has been spoken of by the prophets of old, those who were considered the wisest of men, the sages. These would be Azog and Denmark, and Moses and Abraham, and that of Jesus and Buddha and Confucius and Muhammad, to name but a few. For the temple so spoken of in all of these works is that of the physical body. And what ye think, eat, and do is what ye produce within that of the physical body, the temple. Now, if the body radiates health and vigor, then know ye that this is an example of the one with the lesser amounts of sin. For while it be understood or not, or recognized or not, makes little difference. All physical illness in any physical body is the end result of sin. This is what has been met by defiling the temple. See?
We have often heard you speak of the sin of the Christian in regards to the physical body. Will you explain this, please?
Those again of old did attempt to seek to gain control, power over the peoples. And these who did so practice the letter of the law and forget the spirit of the law, taught shame, debasement, and defilement of that of the physical form. Now know ye, in this day as well as ancient days, there are those who can live the celibate life. And in this, they can utilize more of the creative energies in order to attain at-one-ment. For the creative energies is of one force, for sexual power and creative powers are of the same force, but simply are expressions of the different choices that can be activated by that of man. Now for most it would be best to evolve to the point where ye become so loving towards all that of the physical desires have all been channeled toward that of attainment of the Godhead itself. This is the highest degree of love that can be manifested. But there were those in the past who forced themselves to subjugate that of the physical desires. And in doing so, they were attempting to shorten the path to the reaching of the God force. And there are no shortcuts to learning love. Now these men and women who were respected as leaders, so to speak, did impose and force upon other peoples their misguided concepts of why celibacy is desirable. And in this they could only teach shame, debasement, defilement, or guilt feelings of the physical body. And in this it is known as the sin of the Christian. For it was the Christian primarily that did teach this. For know ye, ye might have a tendency to look down thy nose at certain that ye would call heathens, who would not adorn the body with clothing, and would appear in the naked condition. But that native that is naked, that hates not his neighbor, and loves, is higher on the scale of soul development than that most pious of souls who would drape their body in that of clothing and feel shame with even so much as a bare shoulder would be exposed. And this is the end result of the sin of man upon man. This is that would be considered the Christian sin. See?
Apparently this is a quite common thing. Can you give us a practical method of overcoming either embarrassment and or guilt about our bodies?
This would be first practiced within the privacy of thyself, then in that of thy home, and then with those who are of a like mind. To begin with, on an individual basis, simply strip thyself of the adornment and gaze at a reflection of thyself. Look at the body in that of a physical mirror and recognize it for what it is, for it is a miracle indeed. And all the intelligence or knowledge of man has not even begun to remotely suspect the coordination that must exist for the sustenance and sustaining power of the force of life within that of the body itself. Then, after you have looked for that length of time that is satisfying to thee, then ask thyself, what is beauty? For those that are revered as fair in face and form, oftentimes commit a greater sin than that of an ugly hag. For there has been that would be called the sin of the Greek, which is love of the beauty of the body, not internally, not in a functional sense, but simply as an outward expression, that of the full breast or the curved hip within that of the female form, or that of the male who would be considered robust and strong indeed. There can be great sins in this aspect. So again, look for the inner workings of that of the body when you gaze upon thy reflection. Then meditate a little bit. Take just a portion of thy body, the back of a thumb would be good, and gaze at it long and effortlessly, asking thyself the question, what is contained in this simple little portion of the body? And it will dawn upon those who persevere in this practice that the essence of life itself is contained within every atom, every cell of that of the body, and it is unique and beautiful indeed. Now on the common level, where you would not offend others, let thyself go unadorned. Be ye not ashamed until you become used to it. Then, if the entity is one who has mated, encourage the mate to follow thy example. For those who are experiencing difficulty in overcoming the feelings of shame and guilt of the physical form, and there has been a marriage consummated, simply gather ye that to a dwelling that would be thine in private. Walk in the door, throw the clothing on the floor, and do so for even the third day. And by the end of the third day, you will begin to wonder, to be perplexed why you felt any shame at all. This is a small beginning, but this is where it would be most helpful to start. Then if ye so choose, and this is a personal thing, seek ye out those of a like mind. For there are many, for reasons of health, and to overcome the psychological barriers of feeling embarrassed, there are those that would learn to blush. And you must know man is the only creature that does so. And in most cases is the only one that has reasons to also. This can be overcome. Be ye examples unto thyself and unto others. If by this ye construe that we would advocate complete nakedness at all times in any part of the world, then ye are misleading thyself. For no one likes to walk in the snow naked. But at those times and those places where there are those of a like mind, yea, without feeling shame of thyself or shame for that of another, recognize it simply for that it is, the temple, the miracle the vehicle of the soul. For if you would look upon the body as a spiritual thing and a physical thing, rather than just a physical thing, then you would elevate thy consciousness and cause the furtherment or development of that of the soul. See?
Please differentiate between love and lust.
Love is giving, lust is taking.
What are the possibilities involved in attracting a soul through a lustful versus a loving act of conception?
That will be created that is exactly right for that soul as up to the entering in. If there be two who would be loving, and loving is seeking to satisfy that of the other, and not self-satisfaction, then that of the soul that would be entering in takes on a certain degree of the vibration, the karma you might call it, of the father and mother, and would be a most loving soul. That is created in a moment of lust, with feelings of guilt, would create the feelings of lust and guilt, and that would be exactly the right vibration for that soul that did inhabit that physical form. This is the natural law, and there are no rooms for imperfections. It is a rare thing indeed when a physical form is created that is absolutely perfect for a soul to inhabit, but each soul entering that of the newborn child does so because it satisfies a greater portion of that that is needed by that of the soul for the re-entering in. See?
Is artificial conception a sin?
There is no sin in conception. Conception is a gift of God, regardless of the manner in which it is induced. See?
Many people in seemingly ignorance have propagated themselves and created terribly deficient vehicles or bodies for souls to inhabit.
Each vehicle is perfect for the soul that would inhabit it. There are no mistakes. There are no deficiencies. It simply appears to those who are witless and ignorant. See?
Concerning the overly populated countries with this seemingly problem, other than abstinence, what is the best and safest method of birth control?
Would you deny these entities opportunities to learn that was their undoing? For you would find that those that would enter into this form of society, those form of culture, have exactly the right environment, for they, who would ye be to be the judge of what is right or wrong? See?
What adverse effects may be caused from birth control pills?
Now again, if it was gathered in that of the natural state, it would be more helpful as a control. In certain parts of Mexico, Central America, the northern part of South America, and the central portion of the Dark Continent, in some of the outer regions of Mongolia, there are certain wild tubers that would grow, known as yams or sweet potatoes. These contain a substance that ye now know as progesterone in large amounts. Now these yams are not particularly delectable at the table, but if they were chewed upon slowly and easily, this would be a most natural way of preventing the act of conception from taking place. For much of what you see in the manufacture that you now know as the pill is simply made from an extract, and a synthetic one, from these natural substances, see? Now, that of the synthetic aspect induced into that of the physical body, if left long enough, for many, and this would probably not occur until that of the 6th or 7th year, will eventually enable any body to be susceptible to the formation of certain polyps that could develop into that of tumorous conditions. Not those that would be considered malignant in the beginning, but those that could be. But again, this is an individual thing. There are no two bodies that are exactly alike. It would simply be up to the individual to try them. And if the side effects, and there are side effects, for it causes hormone imbalances to exist within that of the body, should be considered by the individual. Now, if that of the female decides that the hair that is growing upon her chest is not appealing to her eye, she should seek out another form of prevention. See?
What adverse effects may be caused from IUDs or intrauterine devices?
This could be as an irritant to many. Men as such would cause excessive bleeding, the formation of pistols, and that of pus as an irritant here to the mouth of the womb, rubbing it raw, so to speak. And in this there would be danger. And if it be painful, utilize it not. But most of this is for naught, you know. For if the male and the female seriously do not desire the possibility of a forthcoming child, then that prayer will be answered. This is a little too simple for most, but this is the way that would be most effective and the way that has always worked throughout that of the ages. No child is born accidentally. All are as an end result of the desire of one or both of the other, of the parents, you see. For if neither did desire that of the forthcoming child, there would be ways that the subconscious would protect them so that they could not possibly engage in physical congress at such a time when conception could take place. For the period of time, you see, is rather short within that of the female form. See?
What thought would the couple hold in their mind to prevent conception?
A lack of desire for that of conception.
Okay.
If the entities would not want that of the child, this is a prayer. All prayers are answered, you know. See?
Is vasectomy generally advisable for a means of birth control? Specifically, under what conditions should it be avoided?
It's an excellent method of what you would call birth control. What should be avoided is the male who would suddenly consider himself the rampant bull that would love to attempt the act of impregnation with as many females that would come to his fold, knowing full well that there would be protection. If it is consummated in order to fulfill the act of lust, then it is a sinful aspect indeed, and this will be met either in this lifetime or in others. However, if it is simply to satisfy that of the wishes of both, in this there is no sin. See?
Is there anything you can offer in the way of those men who suddenly have terrible psychological repercussions from having vasectomies?
This is as a shattering of the small I am, the ego. For you see, it is natural to be that of a creator or co-creator with that of God. And when that of the ego is the larger part of the record of the entity feels the larger part has been shattered, the ego. And this is true. But that of the greater part, of course, has not been touched upon. But those who are immired in this frame of mind do so because they feel they have failed in their ability to create on all levels. And again, this is largely the sin that has been handed down in the form of religious tenets. For that biological clock must tick for all in that of the physical form. And there would be those urges that are natural and that arise in any and all and simply should be satisfied. It is this portion of the world primarily where they have been taught to feel sin in the sharing through that of physical congress. But this clock would tick, and when the alarm rings, it would behoove all, if they could seek out in an act of love the satisfaction of the release of these creative urges. Now, if this is not possible, then ye enter the holies of holies as a meditation, and let that of the kundalini yet rise. This will open certain centers within that of the physical form that will enable the entity to gain greater awareness of his or her relationship with God. The psychological effect is that of ego that is being shattered. And if it is being shattered, best that it should. For ego is that separates man from God. For ego is of self, and self is the only sin. See?
I am assuming then this would also be the same case for those women who have psychological repercussions from hysterectomy.
As of the same. See?
You spoke of love being giving and lust being taking. Is then lust considered a sin?
As up to the same, certainly, always has been and always will be. Love is seeking to satisfy another. Lust is seeking to satisfy self. And self is the only sin, see?
Concerning abortion, please give us an in-depth discourse which you consider would be most timely and beneficial to the greatest number of people with the time available before this channel's body becomes depleted.
This has been given, see?
Thank you. We have no more questions at this time.
Then awaken the physical form, please, for it is becoming depleted.
Please remove all negative influences from this entity now.
Done.
Allow the body to become completely relaxed.
It is.
Allow any further healing which may take place to take place now.
That could be accepted has been accepted.
Please awaken now, feeling completely refreshed and relaxed.